Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into an absolutely monumental shift that's currently sweeping through the Chinese robotics industry. For decades, the industry's ultimate goal was actually pretty simple. Just build a machine that's faster, stronger, and far more stable than a human. But today, we're moving completely away from those purely physical, industrial machines, and we are stepping right into the era of emotionally intelligent humanoids.
And because of that shift, we're entering a slightly controversial but honestly, utterly fascinating reality. Robots are no longer just these heavy-duty factory tools lifting boxes. They're actually being engineered to hold totally natural conversations, to remember your past interactions, to read your facial expressions, and in some pretty startling cases, to even visually and vocally clone specific individuals. We are literally watching the birth of true digital companions.
So to make sense of this rapidly evolving landscape, we're going to break this down into 5 key areas: the new era of humanoids, anatomy and technical specs, the artificial brains, real-world applications, and finally, companions for the lonely.
All right, let's jump right into part 1, the new era of humanoids.
The old paradigm was all about mechanics and heavy lifting, right? But today, developers like Showing Technology and Headform have realized something really profound. Making a human feel psychologically comfortable around a robot is actually way harder than just making a robot walk. So they're pouring all their resources into things like blinking, subtle facial movements, and psychological comfort. The whole goal is to make these robots our daily companions, seamlessly blending right into our social spaces.
And this shift brings us to a really fascinating concept being pushed by companies like Headform. It's called digital heritage. Imagine a machine acting as a physical platform to keep a loved one's presence alive, literally reproducing their face, their voice, and all their specific little quirks. It really proves that the hardest and maybe the most valuable part of a robot to build isn't the complex mechanics of bipedal legs, but the warmth and familiarity of the human face.
Let's move on to Section 2, Anatomy and Technical Specs. So let's see how these lofty goals translate into actual physical machines, because the engineering measurements here are incredibly impressive. Take the humanoid Moya, created by the Shanghai startup DroidUp. Moya stands at exactly 168 centimeters tall on its Walker 3 platform. But what makes this construction so unique is that it uses an artificial spine. So instead of rigid, clunky robotic joints, this spine lets Moya's upper body bend, turn, and distribute weight much more naturally. And despite this full-sized, human-like frame, Moya only weighs about 32 kilograms. How on earth do they achieve that? Well, they use highly specialized soft materials, placed perfectly under a layer of silicone skin. These materials are engineered to mimic the exact density and feel of human muscle and fatty tissue, which gives Moya an incredibly lifelike physical presence.
Okay, but here is the real kicker, and what truly sets this machine apart: the temperature. Moya actually maintains a warm skin temperature hovering right between 32 and 36 degrees Celsius. When you think about it, that is an absolute game changer for human interaction. It ensures that a handshake or a touch feels like connecting with a real warm human being rather than touching cold, dead plastic.
Now, contrasting Moya with Unix AI's Panther robot, we can see exactly how these precise measurements and form factors dictate their real-world use. Moya, coming in at a hefty $173,000, is all about bipedal empathy and deep human connection. Panther, on the other hand, trades the walking legs for a highly stable wheeled base. It's much heavier at 80 kilograms, features 34 degrees of freedom, and boasts an 8 to 16-hour battery life. This makes Panther an absolute powerhouse for continuous, reliable household assistance.
Which brings us nicely to Section 3, the artificial brains. Of course, a realistic, warm-skinned body is completely useless without a mind to pilot it. So to solve the blank slate problem, where a robot just forgets who you are every time you talk to it, Robotics has delivered the Vinci system to companies like Era. This is amazing. They literally put cameras right inside the robot's eyes to track your face in real time. But more importantly, it gives the robot long-term memory. It remembers past conversations, analyzes your emotional engagement, and actually adapts its personality over time to suit you.
Meanwhile, tech giant Alibaba is tackling a totally different side of the brain in their Tongyi lab. They've realized that a single AI can't do everything perfectly, so they broke down complex reasoning into specialized models. QuenVL handles visual navigation, allowing a robot to map a house on the fly. Quen Robot World acts like a simulator, predicting what happens if it opens a door or drops an item. And Quen Robot Manage manages the actual physical gripping. It's a highly detailed instruction flow that lets the robot function entirely on its own. Moving right along to Section 4, Real-World Applications.
Now that we understand the intricate hardware and the specialized AI brains, let's look at how these precise instructions and measurements play out in the real world. Utilizing its 34 degrees of freedom and bionic arms, the Panther robot doesn't just do one simple thing. It executes complex, long-sequence task instructions for the household. On a single charge of its 16-hour battery, Panther can autonomously navigate to a bedroom to wake its owner, roll into the kitchen to delicately prepare breakfast with intelligent grippers, and seamlessly transition into executing cleaning protocols across multiple rooms. It's a complete, measured workflow happening in homes around the world right now.
And on an even larger scale, these machines are leaving the home and entering civil infrastructure. Yubatech has successfully deployed their Walker S2 models at a major border customs crossing between China and Vietnam. Backed by a massive $40 million contract, these humanoids are directing passengers, answering customs questions, and actively controlling crowd flow. I mean, it proves unequivocally that this technology has moved way, way beyond the laboratory prototype phase.
Finally, let's cover Section 5, Companions for the Lonely. So what is pushing this industry so rapidly toward emotional companionship, rather than just basic utility? Well, there is a quiet but massive societal crisis occurring in China. Currently, there are roughly 90 million adults living entirely alone. Even more staggering, there are 180 million empty nest elderly whose children have left home. This creates a huge vacuum. The demand for daily emotional connection and digital companionship isn't just some niche market. It is an absolute necessity driven by hundreds of millions of people. To answer this immense demand, Yubatech launched the U-World U1 series. Starting at 119,800 yuan, which translates to roughly $18,000, these robots are designed specifically for home care and emotional communication. And the market response? They instantly garnered over 10,000 orders upon presentation. People are highly willing to invest in an intelligent presence for their homes. And Yubatech is taking this a step further with an incredibly ambitious and maybe somewhat controversial initiative. Capable of distinguishing over 20 human emotional states with 90% accuracy, the UN robots are going to be customized to physically clone lost loved ones. By 2026, the company plans to donate 100 of these highly personalized units, featuring full 3D facial reconstruction and voice cloning, to orphans and lonely elderly. It's essentially providing physical manifestations of digital heritage to those in difficult situations. So, as these machines walk into our homes, warm to the touch, carrying the voices and faces of people we love, or as they stand at our borders making operational decisions, the lines between tool and human are blurring permanently. When a digital companion takes action, who truly bears responsibility for the outcome? The manufacturer, the user, or the machine itself? Keep questioning the future with us. Make sure to subscribe to AI Vanguard to stay at the cutting edge of industrial AI. If you found this synthesis valuable, please like, comment, and share. Thanks for exploring this explainer with me, and I'll catch you next time.